She kept looking over her shoulder. Again and again. Her hands trembled as she gripped her phone, her battery blinking red at just 3%. The rain had started to fall, just light enough to annoy, but heavy enough to add to her fear. She had no one to call. No ride coming. And the gas station was nearly empty, except for the two men leaning by the vending machine, watching her too closely. If you're someone who believes that kindness still exists, that good people are still out there, stick around. Because by the end of this story, you'll understand how one selfless act from a stranger turned fear into safety, and loneliness into hope. And before we begin, if stories like these move you, inspire you, or just make you believe in humanity again, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Kindness Narrative. You'll be part of a growing community that celebrates everyday heroes. Her name was Maddie. She was 24, working 2 jobs just to afford college part-time, and that night she had made a simple mistake, forgot to fill her tank before her shift. Now it was nearly midnight. Her phone's GPS had brought her to this rundown gas station in a part of town she didn't know. The pumps were ancient, the overhead lights flickered, and the smell of burnt coffee and diesel filled the air. Maddie had barely stepped out of the car before the two men spotted her. One leaned over to whisper something to the other, and then they laughed. Loudly. Too loudly. It echoed through the near-empty lot like a warning. She tried to ignore them. Focused on swiping her card. Tried again. And again. Error. Need help with that, sweetheart? One of them called out, slowly approaching. Maddie's stomach twisted. Her voice caught in her throat. No, I'm okay, she managed to say, but her tone lacked confidence. The man didn't stop walking. The other followed, a few steps behind, grinning. You look a little lost. We could show you around, the first one said, standing just a little too close. She instinctively took a step back, but bumped into her car. Her hands reached for her keys, but she had left them inside. Another mistake. That's when she noticed a truck pulling into the far end of the station. A silver Ford, a little rusted, headlights dim. It didn't belong in this part of town either. The driver cut the engine and opened the door slowly. He stepped out, a tall man in a worn hoodie, jeans, and sneakers. Holding a little girl's hand. Maddie saw him glance her way, just once. His eyes scanned the scene. Something about the way he looked, calm, direct, made her exhale. For the first time in minutes, she felt less alone. The man whispered something to the girl, then walked toward the station's main building, right past Maddie and the two men. But as he passed, he nodded at her, just once. Just enough to let her know he had noticed. And he didn't disappear into the store like she expected. He stayed near the door, watching from the corner of his eye. The two men noticed him too. Their laughter died. One muttered something under his breath. And suddenly, Maddie felt them retreat. They didn't say goodbye. Didn't mock her. They just slowly drifted back toward their spot, watching the stranger now. A few minutes later, the man came back out with a juice box and a sandwich. The little girl trailed behind, holding a small stuffed bunny that had clearly seen better days. Pump 2's card reader's broken, he said casually, as he approached Maddie. Use Pump 3. I already asked inside. Thank you, she whispered, barely able to hide the shakiness in her voice. The man crouched briefly to tie his daughter's shoe. Then stood again, offering a small smile. You okay? She nodded, too embarrassed to admit the truth. He tilted his head slightly. I saw them. That kind of trouble? You don't deserve it. Nobody does. I should have left earlier, Maddie mumbled. I shouldn't have. Hey, he interrupted gently. It's not your fault. People like that, they look for someone who's alone. That's on them, not you. She glanced at his daughter. The little girl smiled up at her, then offered her bunny without a word. The simple act nearly broke Maddie's composure. She smiled back, biting her lip to keep from crying. He didn't ask for details. Didn't press. He just stood there, talking to her while she filled her tank. Told her about the cheap motels nearby. Gave her directions to the freeway. Even waited until she was back in her car and locked in. As she started to drive off, he knocked lightly on her window. She rolled it down. "You've got this," he said. "Get home safe, okay?" She didn't even know his name. It was a week later when Maddie saw him again. Not at a gas station. Not on a dark, rainy night. But in a small grocery store parking lot 2 towns over. This time, under clear skies, with people everywhere. She had stopped to grab some essentials before her morning shift when she spotted the little girl first, sitting in a shopping cart, swinging her legs and holding the same floppy bunny. Then came the man, wearing a faded blue t-shirt and balancing a gallon of milk and a loaf of bread. She hesitated. Should she say something? Would he even remember her? But before she could decide, the little girl pointed. "Daddy. That's the gas station lady." He looked up, and their eyes met. This time, she smiled first. "Hey," Maddie said as she walked over. I never got to say thank you. For that night." He looked a little surprised, but not uncomfortable. "You made it home okay?" "Yeah. I did. Because of you." He nodded, simple and quiet. "That's good." They stood in silence for a second, the sound of carts clattering and store music faint in the background. "I'm Maddie," she said. "Ryan," he replied. "And this is Lily." The little girl waved proudly, gripping her bunny like it was armor. "I wanted to ask that night," Maddie said, her voice lowering, "but I didn't want to make it awkward." "Why did you stop? You had your daughter with you." Most people would have just looked away. He sighed, shifting the milk from one hand to the other. "Because too many people do look away. And I never want my daughter to grow up thinking that's okay. I want her to know we show up. Even when it's uncomfortable. Even when it's not our problem." Maddie felt tears burn at the corners of her eyes. She hadn't cried that night. Not until she got home. But now, standing in the daylight, in a regular grocery store lot, hearing those simple words, "We show up," she felt something break open. "Most people don't show up," she whispered. "Not for me. Not before." Ryan looked at her then, not with pity, not with judgment, just a quiet understanding that felt like a warm coat around her shoulders. "I know what it's like to feel invisible," he said. "And I know what it's like to need just one person to see you." They didn't talk for long. Ryan had to get Lily home. Maddie had to get to work. But as they parted, she felt something shift inside her, a weight she didn't even know she was carrying seemed lighter. Not gone. But lighter. That moment could have ended there. Another passing connection. Another almost story. But fate had other plans. 2 days later, Ryan's truck broke down right outside the college where Maddie took her night classes. She was coming out of the library when she saw him under the hood, trying to make sense of an engine that had clearly seen too many winters. She laughed. "You again?" He turned, startled, then smiled. "This truck's got more attitude than horsepower." Maddie helped him push the truck to the side, offered him a ride to the nearest mechanic, and even waited with Lily while he went in. They talked more that day. About how Ryan had been raising Lily alone since his wife passed away in childbirth. About how he worked odd jobs, rarely complained, and just did what needed to be done. "I used to work in construction," he said. "Lost most of my contracts during the recession. Now it's temp work and night shifts. Not glamorous, but it keeps her fed." Maddie told him about her mother who left when she was 14, her father who drank away what was left of their family, and how she had sworn she'd never need anyone again. "Looks like we're both figuring it out one step at a time," he said. After that day, they started seeing more of each other. A cup of coffee here. A late-night walk there. Lily adored Maddie, called her Miss Magic, because of the bedtime stories she told with different voices. And Maddie began to feel something she hadn't felt in years. Safe. Seen. Valued. But not everything came easy. There were bills. Breakdowns. Ryan got laid off for 2 weeks. Maddie failed an important class because of a missed deadline at work. And one night, Lily got sick. Really sick. Maddie rushed to the hospital with them, holding Lily's hand while Ryan argued with a nurse about insurance. It wasn't a dramatic, movie-style rescue. But it was love. Real, quiet, grown-up love that shows up in parking lots and gas stations and waiting rooms. The kind of love that doesn't ask, "What's wrong with you?" but says, "I'm here anyway." Eventually, Maddie found a better job. She saved enough to cut down her hours and focus on school. Ryan got hired permanently at a warehouse after a supervisor saw how hard he worked during a temporary contract. And one Sunday morning, while Lily danced in a puddle wearing rain boots too big for her, Maddie asked Ryan, "Do you believe people come into our lives for a reason?" He smiled and said, "No. I think they come into our lives when we need them the most." She reached out and held his hand. "Then I guess I needed you." He looked at her, eyes full of the quiet strength that had changed her life. "And I needed you too. So here's what you should take from this story: kindness isn't always loud. It doesn't wear a cape or come with fireworks. Sometimes, it's a man in a rusted truck who sees you when others don't. Sometimes, it's a little girl offering her stuffed bunny to someone who looks like they're about to cry. And sometimes, kindness is the start of everything we thought we'd never find. So if this story moved you, even just a little, take a second to like this video and subscribe to Kindness Narrative. Because we believe in stories that heal, that inspire, and that remind us, the world still has good people. You could be the reason someone else believes again.